Well, standing before you tonight is a perfect man, born into an imperfect world. And when I asked to give my testimony, I said, who you gotta be kidding me? Well, I'm standing before you tonight. I am a proud member of the Muskogee Creek Nation tribe. The native blood that flows through my veins is filled with history and pride. But I am prouder of the fact that I am a believer in Jesus Christ and that he has spilled his blood for my sins. I struggle with anger, trust, and denial. My name is George. I was born in October 1940, Tahlequah, Oklahoma, in an Indian hospital. I was raised on a farm in Hanna, Oklahoma, next to the oldest of 6 siblings. My family was what you call row farmers. For those of you that do not know what a row farmer does, he raises anything that grows in a row: corn, cotton, peanuts, and so on. We went to a country school where I was teased about my name, George. Georgie Porgy, pudding and pie, kissed the girls and made them cry. At the time, I was not sure why that bothered me so much, but the older I got, I realized it was the white kids that was always teasing and making fun of the Indians. That was hurtful, but the most lasting and hurtful of discrimination came from my grandmother. My mom's mom, she was a racist and was not afraid to direct that racism towards me and my brother and sisters. We could all tell who her favorite grandchildren were. My parents did their best to raise us in a Christian home. We attended the Tuskegee Baptist Church. Let me tell you, folks, an Indian church is a lot different than the churches we see today. You were reverent while in service. The women sat on one side and the men sat on the other. The kids sat in the back, overseen by the elders. If you were caught talking, laughing, or horsing around, they had a long stick and they would smack you on the shoulder, arms, hands, wherever they could reach first. I have memories of the fifth Sunday church services. They would last all day long. We always had lunch, then more preaching in both English and Creek. Just to give you a little native history lesson on, you have to understand that back when I was growing up in the 40s and 50s, family with one or both parents that were native Indians to Oklahoma had a more difficult time showing love and having a traditional family unit. This was due in large part to how our Indian parents were raised. Indian children were taken by force when need be from their parents and sent to government boarding schools. Here they were forced to lose their native tradition, including the native language. If they were caught speaking in their native tongues, this resulted in harsh punishment, including isolation, food withholding, physical punishment, and mouth washing with soap. They were forced to cut their traditional long hair. Their names were changed if it was too traditional. Despite my dad's being raised in the Chilocco Indian School in Kansas, he was a kind and gentle soul. I developed a strong work ethic from a very young age. Before school or after school, I was expected to work and complete my chores on the farm before any extra activities. During junior high and high school, I played baseball. I always had baseball and hunting friends to hang out with. As we all started noticing the opposite sex and dating, I had a friend that kept telling me I need to meet his niece. He kept telling me she was smart, pretty, and sweet. Finally, I gave in. She was everything he said and more. Truthfully, though, another reason he wanted me to meet his niece is so they'd all have a ride to town. They lived way out in the country. Peggy and I dated until she graduated high school, and then we married. I was doing construction work, so we moved to wherever the work took us. This was during the late 50s and early 60s. Living in Oklahoma, discrimination against Indians was not that prevalent. While working in surrounding states, that was not always the case. Indians were turned away from restaurants, movies, and stores for being too dark. I have traveled every continent in the world and have been pulled aside in almost every airport for what today would be known as racial profiling. Names such as Indians, Redskins, Squaws, and Chiefs to this day are used to refer to Indians. I think the thing that bothers me most about the name calling is it would never be accepted to call other ethnic groups names. It was during this time that we had our firstborn, a girl. I continued to work on construction and go to the bars with my buddies after a hard day of work. Peggy was ready to settle down. After all, we had started a family. My carousing lifestyle carried on for a few more years. One night I was at the pool hall with my buddies when I hear, "Is my daddy in there?" I looked up and lo and behold, there is my white-headed kid with her face pressed up against the screen door looking for her daddy. Of course, Mama was around the corner and not happy. Peggy told me she was through with this lifestyle. It wasn't just this incident that led to her decision. There were a lot. I survived 2 major wrecks where me and my buddies were out drinking, and there were times when I was supposed to be out coon hunting, yet we never let the dogs out to chase. We were busy drinking also after our son was born. With strong encouragement, I decided it was time for me to grow up and start acting like a husband and dad. I went back to school and graduated OSU Tech, and we moved to Tulsa. I got a job with Public Service Electric, where I worked for 31 years before retiring. Peggy and the kids started attending church. I saw that as a good thing. Our kids needed a religious background. I went occasionally for a revival, Easter, or a Christmas program. Eventually, my daughter figured out that church was for everyone. Then came the continuous questions. "Dad, if you die, will you go to heaven? Do you know Jesus? Aren't you afraid of dying and not going to heaven?" On and on. Well, those questions paired with the Holy Ghost had a revival tore into my soul. I accepted Christ as my Savior and have never once doubted my salvation. When I accepted Christ, I was blessed with an unwavering peace that I knew would lead me through the rest of my life. I was fortunate to have what I thought was a very good job. Peggy and I had a spat here and there. At one point, when we seemed to be arguing more than usual, I told her I wanted a divorce. This was not what I signed up for. Well, she told me, "You can't afford a divorce." Thanks to the good Lord for small financial favors. We celebrated our 60th marriage anniversary last May 27th. For years, we had been attending the same small church. There finally came a time Peggy and I both were ready to move on. I cannot tell you the events that led to us making a change in churches, but God in His wisdom had a plan. Joshua 1:9 says, "Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." As it turned out, by church hunting, we attended one church. You got it, Southern Hills Baptist Church. I thought it was okay, but when we came back for the second Sunday, and Hess Hester, the senior pastor, remembered our names, Peggy was hooked. That meant so was I. 2000, the new millennium, started the roughest period of my life. After playing golf with my dad at age 5, Oh. He went to sleep, went to meet Jesus. "2001 brought my battle with prostate cancer. Then 2004, Peggy started her battle with breast cancer. During this time, my family had a secret that I wanted kept a secret. My daughter had an eating disorder and a drinking problem. Peg and I both made it through our cancer treatment and to this day are cancer free. Our daughter, however, continued to drink and starve herself. This is all new to us. She had always been one to set her mind to something and follow through. As I begged and pleaded with her to change, Peggy was pleading with me for us to get help. I didn't need help. My daughter did. Peggy was always asking prayer for our daughter. I did not feel we needed to be sharing our family problems with people at church. I was finding that I was getting more and more angry at a situation I had no control over. Finally, Peggy and I went to talk to Pastor Hess. Pastor Hess laid it all out there, all Carmen's problems. His response was, "Well, folks, the only thing I know that could help would be for you to go to Celebrate Recovery." Was he nuts? I did not need help. Since I was doing what I needed to fix my daughter, I would go to CR until we could talk her into starting and get her well. I believe this is called denial. I had no desire to spend my Friday nights with those people. I started Celebrate Recovery in 2004. I didn't like it. The music was too loud. People were so happy. That's right. That showed me that something was wrong. You didn't have problems like they did and walk around praising God. It just wasn't done. They said, "Keep coming back," and encouraged me to come back. So I went back the following week, not because I wanted to, I just did. Then Becky Murphy talked me into joining the barbecue team and helping cook hamburgers. Coming to CR on Friday night was becoming a way of life. It seemed the music was getting quieter and the speakers and testimonies were getting better. I joined a step study. I was in a group with great and understanding men. I did the step study homework as honestly as I could. Remember, I didn't have any problems. While going through the step study, it brought to my attention that I did have problems in my life. Problems are nothing to be ashamed of. Not dealing with them is. No one has the perfect family or life. Growing up, I was led to believe that showing anger or emotions of any kind was a sign of weakness. I've learned it is okay to be and get angry. I do not have to withdraw or explode because I feel anger or have an opinion that is different from others. I've learned that I cannot and was not made to do things on my own. I know now that CR is the very example of what Christ meant the church to be. Mark 2:17 tells us that Jesus did not come to call the righteous but the sinners. Just as Jesus did, if I am to reach the lost and hurting, I need to be with the lost and hurting. Principle 4 was and continues to be the hardest for me. Openly examine and confess my faults to myself, to God, and to someone I trust. When you are in denial about your feelings and faults, as I was, you're unable to receive the full love of Jesus Christ. I have been fortunate enough to have gone to the CR Summit several times. God willing, I will go next year. Gathering with my CR family renews my spirits. My family and friends all know where I will be found on Friday night. To the newcomers, you're home if you choose to be. I have met some of the best people I have ever known here in Celebrate Recovery. There is no judgment. The understanding and fellowship is like no other that I have experienced. Regardless of what your hurt, habits, and hang-ups is, I can guarantee you will find someone here that can share their similar story of how Christ changed their lives. I have never once regretted coming to Celebrate Recovery. I am thankful every time I walk through the doors. I am an example that you are never too old to learn or change your beliefs. Thank you for letting me share.